lad. He's a very changed man." "It's hanging there now," replied the boy. "Is it?" said Scrooge. "Go and buy it." And then the boy's confused. And Scrooge says, "No, no, I am in earnest. That means I'm serious. Go and buy it, and tell him to bring it here, that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown." Okay, so we're supposed to assume that Scrooge knows he can come back in 5 minutes, because look, he's saying, "I'll give you a shilling, I'll give you half a crown." He wants to give money to the boy. Okay, and this is a physical sign, a material. Okay, so a physical sign that Scrooge has changed. Of Scrooge's change. Okay, because he used to be tight-fisted, so it contrasts with squeezing, wrenching, etc. Okay, that lovely string of adjectives that we know from the beginning. Okay. And it says, "The boy was off like a shot. He must have had a steady hand at a trigger who could have got a shot off half so far." So there's a bit more hyperbole or exaggeration, as we call it. The boy's off so quickly because he's going to get half a crown if he comes back in 5 minutes. Okay, so you'd go off quickly if you thought you could get more money. "I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's," whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. "He shan't know who sends it." That's important. "It's twice the size of Tiny Tim." Look how much there is to say here. "Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's will be." So what does all this mean? So he's rubbing his hands together. So he's excited. Okay, he anticipates Bob's confusion, and it's almost as though he's pranking Bob. Okay, so he's excited. He's rubbing his little hands together because he's created a prank. He's going to send this turkey to Bob anonymously, and he finds it funny. Okay, so he sees the humour by imagining Bob's reaction, his confused face. So he's imagining Bob's reaction there, and that's an episode of humour. So even if you don't find it funny, just accept that you're supposed to be amused by that idea that Scrooge is really delighted with himself because he's thought of a prank. Okay? But also, "He shan't know who sends it" says something else as well. Scrooge doesn't want credit. He doesn't want to be praised for this turkey that is going to mean so much to this family. We know it's going to mean so much to this family because we know that this Christmas will be one of a very poor meal. We know that from the description of their meal. Okay. And Scrooge doesn't want credit for it. And at the beginning of the story, when the charity workers come, he doesn't want to give them any money, and they think that it's because he wants to remain anonymous, that he's a good person but doesn't want any credit for it. And of course it's not, it's because he just doesn't want to give any money. So it makes us think of that. So we think of that episode with the charity workers here. So we recall the charity worker, and therefore we see the change. Therefore we see the change in Scrooge. But you've got to explain why, okay? Because it's that question of being anonymous. But here, the real significance is that he doesn't want any credit for it. Okay, it's twice the size of Tiny Tim. So Scrooge is thinking of Tim. And remember, he was very concerned when he saw Tim die. He's very concerned, very upset that this child had died. And then the last little bit there, "Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's will be." And you're probably thinking, well, who the heck's Joe Miller? well, Joe Miller was famous. Okay, he was an actor and he was famous for his comedy. And it's a little bit more of Dickens using hyperbole. Nothing as funny ever happened in a Joe Miller show as the sight of Bob being really confused. Okay, the sight of Bob being really confused when this turkey turns up. Okay, so again, there's quite a lot to say about that, but it's you know, it's probably be tidier than this. It'll be a lot more spaced out than on the last extract. I just want to return to this bit here, which is actually quite full. Never mind, I don't care. I'm quite a baby. Never mind, I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. I'll change my colour pen. He's got some very, very short sentences here. I'll use a completely different colour there. Okay, very short sentences that they sort of reflect the jumping about of his mind. So short sentences. Okay, and they reflect his excitement. Okay, so short sentences there is Dickens reflecting his excitement. He's all full of anticipation and joyful. And we know because he can't dress himself properly from the last extract, he doesn't know what day it is, he hasn't really got a clue what's going on, that his head's all over the place, and this is also suggested by these very short sentences here. Okay, so don't forget thinking about happiness and change and redemption, and hopefully you've got enough ideas there to be able to answer an assessment on those ideas.